Okay, before we even talk about the machine, can we acknowledge this? The bench is pink. And honestly, that made me really happy. This is the EvolPow M2B Brute, an all-in-one Smith machine home gym. In our living room right now, this setup includes the Brute itself, the adjustable pink bench, and two 35-pound bumper plates. We do have the lever arms for this system, and we already reviewed those separately, but they're not installed on the Brute for this video. If you want the full breakdown on the lever arms, that video is already up and it's worth checking out. This rack is competing in the value space. It's trying to give you as much capability as possible without completely breaking the bank. So the real question is simple. Does it give you enough to actually be worthwhile? If you're building or reworking your home gym, you're in the right place. So hit that subscribe button. Before we go any further, I do want to spend a minute on who EvolPow is, because context matters. When you go to their website, the first thing that stands out is that it's well built out and professional looking. It doesn't feel rushed or sloppy. They don't just list products, they have buying guides, home gym resources, and blog content that walks through equipment choices, space planning, and what to consider before buying large pieces. And it goes beyond equipment. They even have blogs on diet and nutrition, which tells me they're trying to speak to the bigger picture of training at home. They also share how they say the brand got started. According to their website, EvolPow came out of someone hitting burnout in a demanding career and realizing that staying consistent with fitness was harder than it needed to be, especially without space, time, or gym access. The idea was to build home gym equipment that fits into real life, not just hardcore gym setups. That's their story. And we will still evaluate the equipment on its own merits, but it does line up with how they position themselves. EvolPow clearly operates in the value-focused home gym space, offering multifunction machines that cover a lot of ground without stepping into premium pricing. So with that context in mind, let's talk about what the Brute actually is. At its core, the Brute is a 6-post rack built from 2x2 14-gauge steel. It's laid out more like a traditional rack than a single upright machine. It has depth, it has presence, and it's meant to stay put. One thing that really stands out is the triangular bracing on the top of the uprights. That bracing adds a lot of rigidity to the frame. In our living room, this moves about as much as our 3x3 bat-winged rack, which is honestly pretty impressive for 2x2 14-gauge system. I'll be honest, when Jeff told me we were bringing in a 2x2 14-gauge rack, I was skeptical. I had expectations in my head. But seeing how the 6-post layout and bracing come together here, that skepticism, it didn't really hold. When you look at what's actually built into the Brute, there's a lot going on. So let's just talk about what's here, not how it performs quite yet. So you have a plate-loaded functional trainer trolley system with Olympic plate sleeves. Plate-loaded Smith machine running on a linear bearing system. Built-in plate storage and pegboard. Multi-grip pull-up bar. Landmine attachment. Low row plate. Leg press foot plate. Plus a full set of cable attachments. All of that is built into one fixed system with plenty of cable attachments included so that you're not left needing to buy a bunch of extras just to get started. One important technical note. The cables are set up in a 2:1 ratio. That means the resistance is effectively halved compared to what you load. If you want closer to a 1-to-1 feel, you can link the two trolleys together. They're a fairly wide gap between them, so using a dual hook bar is probably the easiest way to do that. And just as set expectations, you're not getting a perfect 1-to-1 ratio because angles always matter. But for practical purposes, it's close enough to think of it that way. Aesthetically, I actually really like the overall look of this rack, especially the large nameplate across the top. It makes the whole thing feel intentional instead of just generic. When this is in your living room, those details matter. Before we get into the performance, we need to talk specs and space. The listed footprint is 47 inches wide by 37 inches deep, and it stands about 83.5 inches tall. But in real-world use, you also need to factor in the Smith bar sleeves, the plate-loaded cable system sleeves, and once you've got plates loaded, the working footprint gets wider, just like loading a barbell in a traditional rack. The front stabilizing feet extend about 22 inches forward, but they're only about 2 inches off the floor. We don't keep the low row plate or the landmine installed day to day. So while this is space you need to be aware of, it's more of a low hanging awareness thing than a real obstruction. Starting with the Smith machine. This runs on linear bearings, which is different from most newer home gym Smiths that are using roller systems. In simple terms, linear bearings are encased inside a block or shaft that slides directly over the steel rod. There aren't wheels rolling on a track. The bearing housing itself moves along the rod. This is the kind of setup you'd see in old school commercial gyms, and it makes that distinct Smith machine sound. And honestly, we kind of love it. It's nostalgic. Most home gym Smiths today are using rollers largely because they're cheaper and they're easier to service. And when you're talking about quality systems, smoothness between rollers and linear bearings is actually pretty similar. In more budget systems, and we could be wrong, but in theory, poorly executed rollers can flex a bit. A linear bearing system theoretically helps limit lateral play because the bearing is captured around the rod. That's not a guarantee. Execution always matters, but in theory, that's the idea. The Smith bar itself is finished in a heavy-duty black powder coat, and the knurling feels really good. It's grippy without being aggressive. It uses a traditional Smith hook system where the bar rotates and hooks directly into the holes on the rack, not onto pins. If you use classic Smith machines, this will feel familiar. For pressing movement, we really enjoyed it. It feels smooth, it tracks well, and honestly, we love hearing the linear bearings work. As with most in-rack Smiths, it doesn't go quite deep enough to really love it for hip thrusts. They're doable if you raise yourself up, but it is not our favorite. That said, lunges and good mornings work really well here and do a solid job of targeting the posterior chain. Moving on to the cable system. This is where a lot of people are going to spend their time. For accessory and isolation work, rows, flies, curls, triceps, lateral work, this feels very much in its element. We do want to be transparent early on. We had an issue where the rollers on the trolleys were sliding instead of rolling. We reached out to EvolPow and they replaced both trolleys for us, and that issue has been resolved. This is a plate-loaded system, and just being honest, we're a little lazy. We personally prefer stack-loaded cables for convenience. It's not a flaw. Plate-loaded systems make sense for a lot of people because they offer cheaper entry using plates that you probably already own. They did confirm they're working on a stack-loaded version, but we're reviewing this based on what exists today. Overall, setting all of that aside, the cable system itself is very competent. There isn't a bunch of slack, and for this price point, it's pretty darn smooth. You can do all of the core functional trainer movements here. You don't have articulating arms. That's the current trend, but the basics are absolutely covered. Looking at their site, the newer version appears to be on essentially the same rack with cosmetic updates and articulating arms. If you want that out of the box, you can step into the Brute Pro. They include a plethora of attachments along with the pegboard and the shelf. As much as we love the pegboard, the shelf is incredible. And I never thought I'd say that, but I'm constantly throwing colors, tools, my phone, a drink, whatever I can right up there. You get the basic attachments that let you do pretty much everything you'd want to do on this system. They're not premium, but they're totally fine for everyday training, and they get the job done. We also need to talk about the adjustable bench. And yes, it was provided in pink, and yes, pink is one of the colors they offer. This is a basic solid FID bench. There is a gap, and it's currently on sale for about $250. While definitely not premium, we never felt unsafe, and it was used in the rack the entire time we had it. At this price, you're not getting leg rollers or extra bells and whistles, but it's a competent bench for this system. And honestly, our first adjustable bench was something very similar to this. We used it with our tonal for a good year. They also provided two 35-pound yellow bumper plates. These are standard bumper plates, nothing premium, but nothing budget either. We don't drop weights, so for us, this is more of an aesthetic thing. We like the EvolPow branding, and they look clean and simple. We do want to be clear, we can't speak to the 10-pound plates, which is usually where quality shows up most, because we didn't receive those. But based on the 35s, they're perfectly fine. One last thing worth mentioning, it does include solid J cups and safety spotters, so you can work off the front of the rack. That adds flexibility and matters when you're training solo. This is for the budget-minded buyers who want to get full workouts in without breaking the bank. At this price point, we feel this is a safe and competent system. It's budget in some places and feels great in others, which is more than you can say for a lot of the no-name Amazon racks out there. You get a ton of versatility here, and if you respect it and don't abuse it, this feels like something that'll be with you as long as you need it. If you're lifting very heavy and pushing monster numbers, this probably isn't your main rack. But if you're using it as an accessory-focused system and doing your heaviest lifts elsewhere, it works just fine. And if you want the absolute best of the best, you weren't shopping this category anyway. We were honestly surprised by this rack in a good way, just like we were with the lever arms. It feels like EvolPow is leveling up, and we're genuinely excited to see the Brute Pro, especially the stack-loaded version. If this is the direction they're headed, we'll definitely be watching. So, does it give you enough to be worthwhile? For the right person? Yes. It's solid, versatile, honest about what it is, and it fits real life. And for us, that's the point.